Welcome into Outkick the Show, primetime edition, reacting live to the college football playoff rankings, which just came out. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Tuesday, wherever you may be across this country, across this great land. We got a lot to get to, but we begin with the numbers that just came down in the event that you were not watching on ESPN, the live television event that they create every single week of the college football playoff. Here are the top five, all right? Number one overall, LSU. Number two, by the way, I agree with that decision. I think LSU unquestionably has the best resume in college football right now. Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy. He might be the number one overall draft pick. I believe that was the right decision. So number one overall, LSU. Number two overall, Ohio State. Agree with the committee. Agree with the rankings right there, 1 and 2. In the 3 spot, I think most people probably agree with Clemson. I actually am not sold on Clemson at number 3. If you're going to value overall strength of schedule as the committee tries to be sending a resume record, then I don't understand why they would be right now in the 3 spot. But the real issue that a lot of people are going to react to is it makes absolutely no sense that Georgia, to me, is the number 4 team in college football. Now, I'm not saying Georgia's not good. I've got a futures ticket on the Georgia Bulldogs to win the national championship. I would love nothing more than for Georgia to advance to the playoff because I also have a futures ticket on LSU. But I don't understand the argument that Georgia has a better resume right now than Alabama. I simply don't. Georgia lost at home to a really bad South Carolina team. I understand the committee's argument. Undoubtedly what their argument is going to be. We value your high more than we detract from your low. And the high for Georgia is they beat Florida and they also beat Notre Dame. That's 2 top 16 wins. I understand it. But Alabama has been far more dominant and they don't have as bad of a loss. And they lost to the number 1 overall team, which if you believe LSU is that good, then I don't really get this determination at all. Now, number 5 spot, they have got Bama. Number 6, Oregon. Number 7, Utah. Number 8, Minnesota, making a huge leap. I agree with that. Reward them for the win over Penn State. Penn State slotted in at number 9, and Oklahoma overall at number 10. The only other team I would say that has a chance to make a run here is Baylor, and they are all the way down at 14. So, big takeaways here. Oklahoma's in trouble, all right? Let's start with Oklahoma is in trouble among the contenders after their narrow escape against Iowa State in conjunction with their win against Kansas State. There's just not a lot of meat left on the bone here for Oklahoma. If they go out and they beat Baylor, whoop-de-doo, they're beating the 14th best team. That's not that impressive of a win. As a result, Baylor would drop substantially. They're nearly a 10-point favorite in this game. It's likely that they may well play Baylor again, so they're going to play a team ranked around 20. I don't like Oklahoma's chances, barring major stumbles in front of them, for the Sooners to end up as one of the 4 teams in the playoff. Let's go the top to bottom. I mean, obviously, the situation here is pretty straightforward and simple. If LSU wins, if Ohio State wins, and if Clemson wins, they're all in. The committee is being pretty straightforward about that. And they're all going to be prohibitive favorites in every game for the rest of the regular season, even that Ohio State game against Penn State. What is intriguing to me is we haven't talked a lot about Georgia. And Georgia, if they win out, which I told you when they lost to South Carolina, I said that was a mulligan game for Georgia. If they beat Auburn this weekend, and by the way, I'm not sure it's going to happen, if they beat Auburn this weekend, and then they beat Texas A&M, and then they beat Georgia Tech, they will theoretically be playing LSU for a spot in the college football playoff. If LSU beats Ole Miss, beats Arkansas, and beats Texas A&M, as we would presume they would, then LSU at 12-0, regardless of what happens in the SEC title game, would be in. So there are 3 SEC teams with a pretty good chance. If you're an Alabama fan and you guys finish 11-1 and Georgia goes 12-1, you're out, right? There's no doubt that Georgia would get in alongside of LSU, and you would have Clemson and you would have Ohio State. For the Pac-12, Auburn is the most significant team that is playing this coming weekend in a game that's winnable. If you are an Oregon fan, if you are a Pac-12 fan, You want for Auburn to beat Georgia this weekend and then beat Alabama in 3 weeks and knock Alabama and Georgia out of contention for the college football playoff, which would open up a spot for the Pac-12, in theory, either 12-1 Oregon or 12-1 Utah. If you are an Oklahoma fan, you need for the Pac-12 to end up with a 2-loss champ. You need for Georgia to get beat by Auburn. You need for Georgia to get or to lose in the SEC title game to LSU. You also need for Alabama to lose out. I believe that Alabama would be the committee's choice over 12-1 Oregon, 12-1 Utah, 12-1 Oklahoma, or 12-1 Baylor. I believe that would be the situation. All right? So that is the overall analysis of this larger picture. If you are a fan of the Pac-12 and the Big 12, you could also just remain in favor of LSU continuing to run the gauntlet here and finishing 13-0 and knocking Georgia out. But again, Auburn is your best bet. If Auburn could beat Georgia and they could beat Alabama, then the SEC would only get one team. It would be LSU, and it would open up, in theory, that 4th spot. Okay? So that is the situation. I think I have answered every question about the college football playoff rankings. Any questions from you guys about the college football playoff rankings? Minnesota's not, first of all, going to go 12-1. Minnesota has like 5 fans, and they're obsessed now with the idea that they're going to go 12-1. Minnesota is going to lose this weekend to Iowa, and all the balloon is going to come out of the Minnesota playoff hopes, okay? So stop with your Minnesota goes 12-0 and loses to only Ohio State. Even then, your resume would not be very impressive. You're not going to make the college football playoff as an at-large. The only way you get in is if you win the Big Ten. And by the way, you're going to lose to Iowa this weekend. Go ahead and write it in stone. Yes, Alabama will get in over 12-1 Oregon or 12-1 Utah. You can go ahead and tap the vein. That's a blood bank guarantee from me. That's especially the case if Auburn beats Georgia. Best thing for Alabama is if Auburn beats Georgia, because then Auburn will be a top 10 game to finish off the season for Alabama, and the win by Alabama over Auburn would be something that Oregon could not do. Oregon has a big rock on top of their head, and that rock is, how in the world do you let Oregon into the college football playoff if they lose to the team that Alabama beat? You don't, put simply. Alabama is going to get in over Oregon. And if you look at the overall control of games, Oregon's very fortunate to be still only 1 loss right now. Could have easily lost to Washington State. Could have easily lost to Washington. I'm not sold on Oregon being anywhere near the team that Alabama or Georgia are, frankly. How do we know that? Because they lost to Auburn starting a true freshman quarterback. People are like, hey, by the way, Oregon, it was the first week of the season. They're better now. You think that Auburn might be a little bit better now with a true freshman quarterback who's played a lot of tough games? That is, I think, beyond a shadow of a doubt, true. All right, Auburn is not in if they win out. Auburn is not in if they win out. 11-2 Auburn would need for chaos to develop in order for them to possibly get in at 10-2, okay? So Auburn at 10-2 needs absolute chaos to develop. And even then, why would Auburn have a better resume than 10-2 Florida, who beat them head-to-head, right? I mean, it really, if you're going to break down and say, oh, Auburn at 10-2, well, they beat Georgia and they beat whatever. Like, they lost head-to-head to Florida, which would finish with the same schedule as them. So this is, I don't believe, no. Some of you are dumb, all right? The conference championship thing doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't matter to the committee. All right? Conference championships happen all the time. There are conference champions all the time. If you are a conference champion of a crappy conference, big whoop. Nobody cares. All right? Alabama would win the Pac-12. Alabama would win the Big 12. They just happen to be in a tougher division than either the Big 12 or the Pac-12 are as conferences. Okay? This argument is dumb. We've proven it over and over again. Alabama got in and won the national championship without winning the SEC West or without winning the SEC, right? So we've seen this happen before. Don't be dumb, all right? That is the truth. All right, let's dive into a couple of other stories. I am, by the way, as I say all the time, humbly the greatest analyzer of the college football playoff in the country, okay? And you can argue that the team that doesn't win the SEC actually gets a benefit because you get to play one less game and you get to rest up like Tua would for an extra week without having to play a big physical game. It's a huge advantage. Again, humbly, not the kind of guy to brag or draw attention to myself, not the kind of guy to sing my praises, but I'm the best at analyzing the college football playoff in the entire country. All right, Colin Kaepernick's got to try out. How many years do you think it's going to take till the Kaepernick jersey poppers are going to stop responding every time there's an injured quarterback? Well, what about Cap? Well, what about Colin Kaepernick? Why don't you put Colin Kaepernick in? These people drive me insane. The reason he's not going to be in is because he stinks, all right? He's 32 years old now. He's going to have a tryout. If somebody wants to sign him and they believe that he's going to make a tremendous difference for their team, I really don't care. But the truth of the matter is the dude's not good, all right? If he were good, if he were Aaron Rodgers, if he were Russell Wilson, if he were Patrick Mahomes, he could advocate for anything under the sun. If Drew Brees came out tomorrow and said, you know what, I think ISIS gets a bad rap, people would still play Drew Brees. Patrick Mahomes can come out and say, hey, you know what, I'm a big believer in polygamy. I'm going to take a knee because polygamy is not legal in this country. And you know what would happen? NFL teams would still play him because they would say this dude is one of the best at what he does. His talents exceed his problems. There isn't anything that Colin Kaepernick does, which is a great deal. He's 32 years old. He hasn't played in 3 years. He wasn't good the last couple of years in which he played. This is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the most overplayed storyline ever. I actually would like for Colin Kaepernick to come out, announce he's going to end his protest, by the way. Michael Bennett, did you guys notice? Michael Bennett, big social justice warrior, ended his protest with the Dallas Cowboys because they agreed to let him be a free agent. So if Colin Kaepernick ends his protest, he's just a dude standing on the sideline with an afro and a clipboard, all right? He's not going to start anywhere. But I kind of wish that somebody like the Bengals would sign him, throw him out to the wolves, and just let him get destroyed by the defense. I mean, that's the truth, because I would love for all the Kaepernicks, all the Colin Kaepernick capers, to just finally shut up when they watched him get destroyed. Also, everybody out there is like, Colin Kaepernick's not employed because he kneeled. No, Colin Kaepernick's not employed because he called police modern-day slave catchers, because he said that Cuba was more free than America, because he played football in pig socks, and because he also, on top of that, was about to get signed by the Baltimore Ravens, and then went out and said their owner was a plantation owner, right? And that Ray Lewis was an Uncle Tom. All right, so Colin Kaepernick has made incredibly stupid decisions that have rendered him unemployable. And so I don't have a lot of sympathy for him. He can have his workout. He can be a 32-year-old dude trying to get a job as a backup in the league. Good luck to him. I think he sucks. I think this story is played out, and I'd like to see a team sign him, put him on the sideline, and just totally ignore him, because the only reason he has value at all in the national discourse is because he's a martyr, right? Right now, the Kaepernicks, who don't even like football, they defend Colin Kaepernick because he's become a martyr. The minute he gets signed, his value disappears. He's gone. He's just one of 32 dudes who are backing up somebody in the NFL. He's not a starter in this league. And as soon as he's under contract, his value disappears almost immediately. So I kind of hope he gets signed. I think it's weird to do a tryout on a Saturday when NFL teams are on the road actually scouting players that are young and have potential, as opposed to old dudes who suck. But more power to him. Do whatever he wants. By the way, top five, bottom five. Top five, bottom five. In the NFL right now, I still have the 49ers as the best team in the league. I have the Patriots second, Seahawks third, Packers 4, Ravens 5. All right? Those are the top 5 teams in the NFL. The bottom 5 teams in the NFL: Dolphins, Jets, Giants, Redskins, and Bengals. Let me repeat all that. My 5 best teams in the NFL through Week 10, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Ravens are my top 5. Bottom 5, Dolphins, Jets, Giants, Redskins, Bengals. I think the Bengals should take as their number 1 overall pick. LSU's #1 in the country team quarterback. How about Joe Burrow? Seahawks win. I think it told us as much or more about Jimmy Garoppolo than it did about the Seahawks. I'm nervous about Jimmy G. Right now in the NFC, you have 3 quarterbacks who have done it before. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Russell Wilson. All 3 of them have won Super Bowls. Did you watch Jimmy G in that 2-minute drive? That 2-minute drive for Jimmy G looked awful. He threw about 3 or 4 interceptable passes. He didn't look like he was ready to put the team on his shoulders and carry them against a good team. I believe that the Niners have an incredible defense. It's possible that Nick Bosa is already the best defensive lineman in the NFL. That's how good he is in only year 2 with the 49ers. I love their defense. But the reality is this, okay? I'm not sold on Jimmy G. And not being sold on Jimmy G, I think, is a big issue for the 49ers, given you got Brees, you got Wilson, and you got Rodgers, all of whom have won Super Bowls right now, that will be projected to be in the NFL playoffs. Finally, we got the Disney Plus launch. I got to go coach college basketball. I got to go coach Little League basketball. My 9-year-old's Little League basketball team. I'm about to have to run out and go coach these guys. But Disney Plus launched today. This is a major story that's worth following. We'll be signed up in my house. I know they got knocked down, and there were a lot of issues that have happened with Disney Plus on the launch day. But effectively what Disney is saying by launching this brand is we have to destroy the existing cable and satellite bundle. I don't want you to mistake what's going on here. All of the money that you spend on the cable and satellite bundle is slowly getting taken from the cable and satellite bundle and rotated over back to the streaming services and back to the free broadcast networks. I think ESPN is going to pivot and start to put a lot of their best games back on ABC as their ratings get undercut, as the overall number of subscribers for cable and satellite disappear. And this is significant, and I've written about it and I've talked about it. Disney wants to own content. They own Star Wars. They own Marvel. They own all of the animation studios. They own everything that they have within their brands. They rent at ESPN. The brand of ESPN makes no sense. I expect for Disney to try to sell, Pixar as well, I expect for Disney to try to sell off ESPN or to gradually ride its value down to almost nothing, take all of the money that they're making off of a dwindlingly profitable ESPN and roll it into other assets that they are trying to monetize, which have more value in the streaming universe. ESPN, I'm telling you, is a dead brand walking. I expect for ABC to gradually be putting more ESPN product on itself, starting with Monday Night Football soon, probably with more NBA product. This is going to be a big hit to the NBA. It's going to be a big hit to Major League Baseball. It's going to be a big hit probably to the NHL. Everything that is on cable and satellite is going to get hit in a big way. I've been telling you guys it was coming for years. The market is just now catching up to it. Props to Disney on pivoting and understanding the importance of Disney Plus and this big streaming war that they're going to have against Netflix. But don't overlook what's happening in the world of sports. The gravy train of the regional sports networks and of the cable sports networks are suddenly starting to run off the tracks, and this business has blown up in a big-time negative way. All right, I love all of you. Again, the college football playoff, let me reiterate, I don't buy Georgia at 4. I think number 5, actually, when you break it down, should not be Alabama. It should be Georgia. I think that Bama will still get in as the overall number 4 team. This is overall a bad job, I believe, by the playoff selection committee. Having said that, Auburn is the linchpin this weekend. I think they have a good chance to beat Georgia and set everything into an uproar. We'll see what ends up happening. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis, DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Live reaction show is done. I'll be live on the radio tomorrow morning breaking all this down further, and we'll have Lock It In as well. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for hanging out with us. I got to go coach Little League basketball. I will see you guys. Kisses. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See ya.